You are actually going to be the hero of today's story. But before I go there, I'm going to say a quick thanks to Costa and Dushan, Sandra, Yelena, all the people from ICT Hub, all the sponsors, all the volunteers who made this happen today. Because if any of you have ever thrown an event, you know it's not an easy thing to do. And actually most of the hard work is already done for us to be here today. So give them a hand of applause. And while you're at it, actually give yourself one too, for being here. Right? You could have done all kinds of things today. You could have done nothing today. Actually, you couldn't have done nothing because then you would have been dead and it would have been sad. But you're here, right? You chose to be here today to talk with us about innovation. And innovation is one of those total bullshit words because it means very different things to different people. Right? There's departments, there's job titles, there's a plethora of consulting companies with all kinds of amazing innovation models. So when you use a big word like that, I'm a big fan of actually defining it. And on a very basic level, it just means to bring in something new. Simple. Right? And we've talked about business models today, and if you think about innovations, there's all kinds of ways you can make that happen. But really, for me, innovation is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to actively create the future, shape the future. And really today, I'm going to try and give you sort of a very, very big picture all the way down to you. Right? Because I said you're the heroes of the story. And it's really about you creating the future and choosing what you're going to do with your lifetime. So I'm going to start very high, future, culture, and leadership. Right? So I'm going to take it from this very, very top level all the way down to what is it that you can do tomorrow. And when we talk about future, I think it's already here. Right? There's another quote that said that the future is already here, just not evenly distributed. Right? And if you think about how fast things happen, who here has a smartphone? Probably everybody, right? Yeah. Who had one 5 years ago? Also quite a few. 10 years ago? Only a few now, right? Only in 10 years that changed. And now it's already normal to have one. Right? So it's going very fast, and we have to be realistic about the future. When I think about realism, realism is a mixture of being able to see the pessimistic perspective and also see the optimistic perspective, and being able to see both, and equally see both. And there's a lot of reasons to be a pessimist in today's world. Right? Anybody notice how beautiful the weather is right now? Right? I mean, as much as I enjoy that, I lived in Los Angeles for a long time, I love sunshine, but it's changing. Right? We have massive weather events everywhere around the world this year. Record highs, record temperatures, and we're only starting to begin to know what this actually means. Right? Millions of species are dying, and what that changes, we don't really know yet. Right? So this could really go bad very quickly. We also see a shift in power globally, and not necessarily to the good. Right? There's some new things that have come up and everywhere around the world. I grew up in Germany, and I'm looking at Germany right now, even there, where we really, really, really should know better. Even there, some of these things are rising again. Massive changes, massive displacements. We have huge migrations around the world, changing culture everywhere. Right? We're in this global culture sludge now, where we have the same ideas everywhere around the world while people are moving around, and it's upheaval. Right? And of course, the robots are coming. Right? Automation, AI, all that stuff's going to take 80% of jobs that we have today. They're going to be redundant. And actually, for the most of these jobs, thank God. Right? But I told you I'm also an optimist. And what I also see is that there's awareness now that's rising. People are beginning to realize that, oh shit, I play a role in this. How I live every day actually affects the world. Right? And we see people standing up and saying, you know what, that's not cool. We did fight for these values. We did fight for equality, justice, all these things that we hold high as values. So that's also happening. And we see technology reaching everywhere. I lived in India for 3 years, and for $25, you can now get a smartphone and have more information in your pocket than Bill Clinton had when he was president. Right? That's also happening. I saw a video of a 13-year-old kid in Africa who had multiple businesses already, and they asked him, like, where did you learn all this? And he kind of looked at them very confused, and he said, YouTube? Doesn't everybody? Right? Today you have no excuse not to learn something. You can learn anything you want. It's all there for you. And it's there for you anywhere in the world. And the robots are coming. I actually think that it is just as much as it's a bad thing, it's also a good thing. Right? Because automation, as I said, 80% of those jobs, 50% of them are probably crap anyway, and not really something that we would want a human being to do. Stupid, repetitive shit. Right? And so that's also an opportunity here. And really, it's a story of life. Right? I seem to be alive. I seem to be alive. I seem to be life, just like everything else. Right? And if you look at life, life is a value creation system. From a single cell that creates something, to multiple cells, to the 1,200 species that live in your gut and around you and make up who you are, right? To our relationships, our teams, our organizations, all the way to this planet. That's all value creation systems. Right? And a business is a value creation system. Right? So when you think about business models, we're beginning to start understanding that it's really more organic than mechanical. And one of the things that life has in common, systems theory actually came out of life, out of biology, is that we look at a system and there's inputs, there's processes, and there's outputs, right? Something goes in, something goes on, something comes out. And then there's some feedback loop, and then the system can learn, right, and evolve, hopefully. And so if you look at a business and business models, right, we have inputs, we have processes, and we have outputs. Something goes in, something goes on, something comes out. And you can make a nice business model canvas. It's a little bit more elaborate and a little bit more detailed, but basically it comes down to this. Right? And all of this is massively changing. Right? If you think about inputs, the first thing is we're dealing with circular economy questions now. Right? I had a team, for example, that I worked with, an entrepreneurial team. They said, we want to reduce ocean plastic. And I said, great. And so after many iterations, what they ended up doing was creating an app for purchasing where people who wanted to buy plastic in the company, and it was Siemens, so they buy a lot of plastic, right? They could put in their specifications, and instead of buying regular plastic, they could buy recycled plastic. They saved the company about 1 to 2 million euros a year, and they reduced ocean plastic, right? So we have new inputs here and new models of how we can use what we have available to us. We have also completely new materials, right? I have a friend who has clothing that's nano ennobled, so it actually resists bacteria. Right? And think about how that changes in a hospital when everybody wears clothes that don't take bacteria on. Suddenly very different. Right? And we have all kinds of opportunities. We have molecular printers now, 3D printers. We can print medicines. We can print all kinds of things. We can print new carbon fibers that are more resistant than any of the materials we have today. So the materials are also changing. And of course, energy is changing. Right? I worked with one startup. They ended up, when Puerto Rico was hit by the weather events, they ended up helping Puerto Rico re-electrify with energy and grid-independent solutions. Right? So energy is changing too, and the energy that feeds your business is changing. And when talking about energy, people are changing. Right? You have a whole new generation now. In the next couple of years, we'll have a whole plethora of baby boomers around the world retiring. Right? And some of us are actually hoping that they will retire and give up their corner offices soon enough, right? But there's a whole bunch of people who are going to be changing, and these new people, they have new expectations, right? They grew up with cell phones. They grew up with the internet. They grew up with these things. They grew up with the idea that my work could actually be purposeful, and they demand that from the employer. So if you want to have the best talent for your company, you have to find ways to motivate these people and give them an opportunity to actually want to work with you, right? And of course, information, right? With massive data, IoT, we're drowning in data, right? We have more already than most companies can actually use, right? And of course, they're also presented to us in completely new ways. And the models there are changing too. I remember 20 years ago as a conference for quantum information algorithm processing. And back then, quantum computer was just an idea. Today, we have the first ones already, right? We have AIs that learn as quickly as toddlers. Right? So the information is changing, all that is changing, and you can build a completely new business model because you have different information available to you. And lastly, even capital, right? Even money is changing. There's whole companies out there that never used a single dollar in fiat currency. So we have completely new ways of organizing ourselves there too. You can build a business today and do a token release and create a completely parallel universe to that which exists in a normal corporate world. So all of our inputs are changing. It's a simple request. In silence, take a moment, and look at the person next to you. And see them. They came here with an intention too. Right? They came here to create something today. They learned, they worked hard to be here today. They probably went to school at some point. They were 5 years old at some point. And they have hopes and dreams like everybody else. Difficult to do for some, huh? Yeah. No worries, the more emotionally aware you become, the easier this exercise is going to get. But it's really about making an authentic connection with someone. And if you think that this is sort of nice, soft skill, esoteric stuff, good for the girls, right? Kind of cute, right? If that's your belief system, then you also might think that I just wasted your time and I made you do some bullshit thing. And you're right. In that belief system, you're absolutely right. If you think it's unnecessary to be able to look somebody in the eyes, then this is bullshit. And you're right. The problem with being right is you can either be right or you can learn. Right? And all those defense mechanisms that just came up that said this is stupid and I don't want to do this. Ask yourself why. Where does this come from? Right? Because each of us can only see what we can see. All of us are captured by our own perception. And there's a beautiful story from India about blind man and the elephant. And there are a bunch of blind men and they say, hey, describe what you're perceiving. And the first guy goes over and he touches the leg and he's like, it's a tree. Right? And the second guy goes over and he's at the side and he's like, oh, it's a wall. Right? And the third guy is at the end, he's like, no, it's a snake. And they actually get in a fist fight about who's right. And that's how we all are, right? We all think we have the answers, or we know what we know, right? And we're willing to fight to be right, right? But none of us can see the elephant. None of us actually knows what's going on around us. Everything you know, you've been taught. Somebody taught you that this is a man, this is a woman, that this is a chair. Somebody taught you these things. And some of them you might have learned yourself. But none of us can actually see reality. We always come through our filters. We all have tremendous amount of cognitive bias. And we never get to get rid of our demons, we just get to live above them. Right? Our natural brain says something is different, and therefore it's wrong. Right? A part of me is still a chauvinist. A part of me is still a racist. Right? That part that is not so conscious. Right? Unfortunately, I have other programs above that say, hey, human being, then maybe man or woman. And so I can look at people that way. And I don't have to get caught in my bias towards them. Right? So we're all here to learn. Right? And if you want to lead a company in the future, you better learn. And also learn in a way where a lot of executives, for example, struggle with that today because they got paid to be the expert, the best guy in the room, the guy who knows what to do. And a colleague of mine just wrote an interesting article about how many of you CEOs are going into meditation or even taking psychedelics or doing crazy shit because they're like, I don't know what to do anymore, right? And really nobody does. And so instead of managing that and being the guy who tells everybody what to do, the role of a leader is now to facilitate emergence. And it's very difficult because you have to be okay with uncertainty. And it's difficult for all of us. And that's why we have to be accountable to each other and committed. Who here has children? Quite a few of you. I bet you if something was there and your child was in danger, you would do whatever it takes to take care of your child, right? You're committed to them, right? That's what commitment looks like. When your child is in danger, you do whatever it takes. But what about their future? Are you committed to them reaching your age? Right? The most likely scenarios that I'm working with for the future people, most likely scenario for 2050 right now is 1984 on steroids. where a few 100,000 people live really well, live like gods, and the rest are kind of screwed. So how committed are you to their future? What are you creating for them? What's your expression? Right? What could you bring to the table to create a different kind of future? What would be most creative for you? Right? And if you think about your company, what can you see for them? What can you solve? Right? Like as Satya Nadella said, I don't work for Microsoft, Microsoft works for me. Right? You can now either be in this reactive victim mode and say, oh, I'm supposed to run innovation in my company and come up with the next new business model. Or you can go and say over here, say, hey, you know what, I'm a visionary, I'm a creator, I want to see something in the world that matters to me. How can I use the assets of my company, right, that I have? Unlike an entrepreneur who has nothing. Right? As an entrepreneur, a corporate startup, you have money, you have a brand name, you have customers, you have a distribution network, you have vendors, you have all kinds of things. You have a brain trust of, sometimes thousands and hundreds of thousands of people you can tap into. What are you solving with that? Right? Why does the world want your company? What's the right of existence? What is the vision you can see for them? And what would be your creation in that? Right? If you think of yourself as a creator of the future, what could you create with your company? What is something that you'd be proud of on your deathbed? Because you're going to die. I mean, the longevity research is going strong, but you're probably going to die one day. And who you will be then? Thanks up. So the future is in your hands, and you're not alone. Right? Look around, you have all these people here, you have wonderful people from ICT Hub, you support it. Right? So you can either go back after today and continue to do your job, or you can start thinking about what future you want to create. Because the future is in your hands. And you can be the heroes of the future.